Hey guys, Jacob Wheeler here. I just got back from the Hartwell event down there in South Carolina, second tour event of the year. Year's starting out really well, but I wanted to back up and talk a little bit about that event, what I was doing during the event. Ended up 20th place, so that was good. Made the cut for the third day and didn't end up catching them the third day, but sort of talk about what I did for those first 2 days to get a few key bites and make that cut. First off, in practice, starting off when we got there, one thing that you have to really practice for in these events is looking ahead of time, and you hope that the weatherman's right. For a lot of these long-term forecasts, you have 5-6 days in advance you're practicing before this event starts. We had a big warming trend prior to the event and had those fish up there shallow, had those fish biting, but also everybody that paid attention to the weather knew that the weather was going to change, and we were going to have some cold weather move in. So we had the first day of practice, we had 70-degree weather. Main Lake was 53, 54 degrees. Backs of the pockets were 57 to 60 degrees. I mean, these fish were biting, and they were biting in a big way. A lot of 20-pound bags were caught. But I knew going into practice that you had to focus on those areas that weren't going to be affected as much by that dropping water temperature, because it was that first day of practice, or the first day of the tournament, was going to be forecasted for about 40 degrees and sleeting rain. I said, hey, I got to focus on the main lake, the mouths of these creeks, and pick up a jerk bait and something that they're going to eat even when it was cold. So I picked up an X-Rap jerk bait, and I really just targeted a lot of those little transition areas where those points, little pea gravel points, but there wasn't a lot of bites. You had to run a lot of points. I was running 100 points and 150 points a day in practice, in little transition banks, and you get a few bites here and there. You just had to have 20, 30 places that you could run and get a few bites and little pockets and whatnot. So I caught my first day of the tournament. I went out and I threw a jerkbait the majority of the day. Caught all my fish on that X-Rap jerkbait, and that was super key to getting a few bites. The one thing that was cool about this bait that got me a few bites later on was that feather. And when you're pausing a jerkbait for a long period of time, I think that a lot of times that feather can get you a few more bites when those fish are more reluctant to actually bite it. So they'll bite that feather even when they might not want to bite the whole bait. So that was key for me. I had 10.5 pounds that first day, and I was sitting about 64th place. I wasn't necessarily where I needed to be. So I knew I needed to make an adjustment. I knew I needed to go out there and change something up. I caught a few fish in practice cranking. The sun was supposed to pop out late in the day. I had a longer day that second day, and I knew if I catch a few fish throwing jerkbait in the morning, which I did, caught a couple of little guys jerking in the morning, I needed to go to an area that I caught a couple bites and go crank and throw a Shad Rap. So that's when I picked up a number 6 Shad Rap. And you ask why number 6? It's something about little baits in the springtime seem to trigger those fish to bite. Small ones, big ones, and everything in between. And I caught a few fish in this one area, one creek arm that was a little bit deeper than the majority of the other creek arms. It had some deep water into the transition bank, so those fish were going to pull back into those little areas. Even if they might have been up on top of those flats in those pockets, they're going to pull back to those transition banks, into those where those channels basically turn into a bank, and you might have a flat or something. So those fish will set up on that. But I was really targeting the pea gravel with the chunk rock mixed in, or a little bit of chunk rock mixed in, because those banks would warm up and they were rooting down there for crawdads. A lot of times in the springtime they'll do that, and when that watercolor is really stained or somewhat off colored, I really like throwing that crawdad color Shad Rap. One thing that you'll see on this bait that's really nice is they have 2 number 5 VMC short shank trebles already on them, so when you buy them at the store, you don't have to do anything to this bait. You just tie it on and you get after it. I was throwing 7-pound Suffix 100% Invisalign fluorocarbon, and that allowed me to get it down a little bit deeper, down there in the 6-7 foot deep. And I also, because of that diameter, I was able to cast it a little bit further, and that was important, because that cast further allowed me to get it deeper and get that smaller profile bait down there where those big ones lived. So that was a super important thing. But the one thing that you got to really focus on is rod setup. Rod setup is so key. Whether you might get the bite, but if you don't have the right rod, you're not going to get that fish in. And I was throwing the Sakuma shaky head rod, TCS Scott Martin shaky head rod, and it has that good parabolic bend. It bends real far into the rod, and it allows those fish to get that bait. So when those fish had bit it, they would hook up really well with those number 5 VMC trebles, and this drag on that RTX reel, Akuma reel, was perfect, and allowed those fish to stay on and get those fish in the boat. So those are 2 baits that I really focused on this tournament, and got a few good bites, and very, very blessed to get the bites that I had. And now I got to go on to Big Sam, and This event's going to be more of a shallow water. Water's going to be a little bit warmer, 60 probably, and they might even be spawning. Might be able to get a look at them. It should be a lot of fun. I'm excited for that event because it's something that, you know, every event's totally different, and you know, you have to prepare for each event differently, and this one's going to be a lot of fun. I've had some good success on Sam Rayburn, and so if we can get down there and get out of there with maybe another top 20 or even top 10, you know, it'd be a good thing. So until next time, guys, we'll see you here